9 Lebanese men who'd been held hostage in Syria for more than a year have arrived home. There were jubilant scenes as the men arrived at Beirut's international airport. They were met by officials and family members. Syrian rebels freed them late on Friday. The agreement was negotiated by Qatar. As part of the deal, 2 Turkish Airlines pilots being held hostage in Lebanon have also been freed. They arrived in Istanbul on a Qatari jet on Saturday. They were kidnapped in Beirut in August in retaliation for the abduction of the Lebanese men. And the settlement also involves a third group of prisoners, women held by the Syrian government. Lebanon's interior minister says Damascus will be releasing 200 prisoners. Here's the latest from Andrew Simmons.
Their homecoming was a chaotic, emotional event. The men being pushed through the crowds of security and some relatives trying to identify their loved ones. And then spontaneous embraces were occurring in the VIP room, and they found their way out in a big crowd. It had been expected that this would be an orderly affair with some sort of news conference involving the caretaker Lebanese government and also Qatari foreign ministry delegation which had flown in, but that did not take place. There were talks in a separate room and the relatives were effectively spontaneously taking their loved ones out, and they then left for southern Beirut and celebrations there. There was concern about the medical condition of some of the men, but they've been checked over in Turkey ahead of the flight out here. And of course, this was quite an extraordinary set of negotiations with Turkey involved as well, and nothing could happen until there was an absolute clearance on the security of the Turkish Airlines pilots and their safe takeoff from this airport. And so now, after all this time, the men are with their loved ones in southern Beirut, celebrating their homecoming.
And Andrew managed to catch up with one of those freed hostages who spoke to him about the conditions of his captivity.
Of course, I feel happy and relieved. Anyone who's forcibly taken away from their family for 530 days will feel relieved at returning home. I thank God, because I felt that I would never see my family again in my life, particularly in recent weeks when there were raging battles taking place around us. In the beginning, they treated us well, but then it was really bad. In the last few months, they imprisoned us in a room where the temperature would reach 50 degrees. The doors were constantly closed. Every 3 days, they'd bring us a kilogram of tomatoes, a kilogram of onions, some aubergine and other food.
And here's Omar Saleh from Antakya with more on the release of the 2 Turkish pilots.
Emotional scenes at Atatürk's International Airport the minute the 2 Turkish pilots stepped out of the private Qatari jet. They were received by the Turkish Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan and senior members of his government. Turkish pilots were reunited immediately with their families, and now I think they are enjoying the happy ending that the Turkish Prime Minister promised this crisis will lead to. Now it needs to bring to the attention that Turkey's involvement in Syria led to a rebel group in Lebanon to take the 2 Turkish pilots. Of course, Turkey as a government denies that. They say those were 2 innocent Turkish citizens that had nothing to do with the ongoing fighting, and they deny that Turkey is involved in Syria. Of course, on the other side of the border, they don't believe that. They accuse Turkey of heavily supporting the opposition, both politically and in arms.